Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Poetry 1, course code 403, lecture 30. In the earlier lectures, we started off with the text of the Rape of the Lock, and we discussed, since we started off with analyzing the text, we started with the theme. The poet invoked the muse to help him to write down this poetry, because since he modeled it after he wrote it in the form of a mock epic, so he has used all the elements that should be present in an epic poem. He utilized all those elements in writing this particular poem. It is based on a trivial incident, but he gave it the treatment of a mock epic. So the use of battles, the use of or the references to knights or the classical allusions, all these things, including the invocation and the mentioning of the theme right in the beginning lines of the poem, they are all mentioned. After the invocation, we find Belinda's first appearance. She is still in her bed, and it's noon. It's about the midday. First she tries to get up, but then she puts her head back on her soft pillow and she goes to sleep once again, and she has a dream. Then in that dream the spirit warns her of the coming danger. Then the Ariel self introduces a number of spirits, that who are these spirits and how comes that these spirits have taken that shape. Then Belinda's dressing table is described, that it contained the cosmetics and the beauty aids that are gathered from all over the world. There are foreign beauty elements also that are present on her dressing table. So this exposition of the dressing table, this also shows the obsession of the 18th century society, the elite class, that they were obsessed with the beauty aids so much that they used not the local things, not the things that are made in the country. They used the things that were best and most expensive, and they came from all over the world. Then Belinda gets ready, and there was a maid also. Her maid's name was Betty. She helps her to get ready for the occasion. Then the voyage is described. There are many young men and women who start their journey on a boat. On the boat she appears to be the most beautiful lady. Then on the other hand, the sylph Ariel is worried, is upset because of the bad omen that it had during that very day, because it warned Belinda also of the coming danger. But Belinda forgot about all that threat that was given to her by the spirit. Then the sylph gathers all these spirits who were on the guard of Belinda. It assigns them different duties to protect her, to take care of her things. Then we have the description of the game of Umber. The game of Umber starts, and it's Belinda who starts the game of Umber. She challenges two gentlemen who are represented as the knights. She challenges them to start the game. So it was a kind of the start of battle. Initially Belinda was successful, but later on when Baron started to play, it seemed that the fate was on Baron's side and he was winning. Eventually in the last round Belinda won, and after the game the coffee was served, and here coffee plays a very significant role, as in the background of age also, that we discussed that coffee is very important. During the 18th century, the coffee houses were the centers of attention. In those places, the scholars, the philosophers, writers, they used to gather and they used to discuss different things, and they gave them inspiration. So at the Hampton Court, after the game of Umber, coffee was served. Now when they were riding on the boat, when they started off with their journey, Baron looked at the beautiful locks of Belinda and he wanted to get them. He was thinking of the ways to get these locks. Later on when the coffee was served, it probably played a very vital role, and he started thinking of different plans. He started thinking of the schemes to get that lock of hair. From this point we left in the previous lecture, so we will start the text from this point onwards. sees rash youth, because he was thinking of the plans to get that lock of Belinda. Desist ever tis too late. So it is said that rash youth is a reference to Baron, that you are being very emotional in your actions. Think before what you are doing, and before that it is very late. Fear the just gods. It says that you should be careful about your actions. Whatever you are going to do, you should be afraid of the God's justice, because he will take revenge. He is seeing this all. And think of Scylla's fate. So this is a reference here. Scylla cut off the lock of hair, and as a result of the that cutting off of the lock, it was changed into a bird. So changed to a bird and sent to flit in air. So in order to, it was changed to a bird, and it was sent in the air to move about here and there. She dearly pays for Nisus' injured hair. So this was the punishment that she received for cutting off the lock of hair of Nisus, who was her father. But when to mischief mortals bend their will, how soon they find fit instruments of ill. Then it says that first there is a threat, there is a warning for Baron. It says that be careful about your actions, whatever you are going to do before it is too late, and you have to repent on what you have earlier done. Then it says that you should keep in mind Scylla's fate, that who was converted to a bird because of cutting off the lock of hair. Then it says that, but when to mischief mortals bend, when human beings, mortals here a reference to the human beings, that whenever human beings want to do something ill, whenever they want to do some mischief on this earth, they very easily find the instrument also. They find the ways of carrying out those evil plans. So this was an evil plan of Baron, that he wanted to cut off the lock of hair. So he very quickly, very soon, he found the instrument, he found the means of carrying out those evil designs. Just then, right at that time, Clarissa drew with tempting grace a two-edged weapon from her shining case. So Clarissa, another lady there, she took out with tempting grace. In a very graceful and in a very persuading manner, she took out a weapon. And that weapon was, it is called weapon since it is an instrument. It is a two-edged weapon having two parts of it. So two parts here refers to the scissors, a pair of scissors. So she took out that pair of scissors from her shining case. So ladies in romance assist their knight, present the spear and arm him for the fight. He takes the gift with reverence and extends the little engine on his fingers' ends. So she presented that in such a way to Baron, as the ladies used to help the knights during the romances. They used to help them. They used to present them with the necessary weapons during the war. They used to give them spears and arms and other weapons when they were about to leave for the fight. He takes the gift. He took it as a gift from Clarissa. With reverence, with great respect, he took that weapon from her and extends the little angel. The little angel here refers to the scissors. He extended it. He put it in his hands, on his fingers, and this just behind Belinda's neck he spread, and he tried it just behind Belinda's neck. As over the fragrant streams she bends her head, swift to the lock 1,000 sprites repair, 1,000 wings by turns blow back the hair, and thrice they twist the diamond in her ear. Thrice she looked back, and thrice the foe drew near. So what happened? He tried to extend that just behind Belinda, and when she bent forward in order to take a sip from her cup of coffee, swift to the lock 1,000 sprites repair. Those spirits who were on the guard of Belinda, they appeared, thousands of them, they appeared there in order to save her lock of hair. 1,000 wings by turns blow back the hair. They tried 1,000 times, they were blowing air so that the lock of the hair moves away. and thrice they twist the diamond. They hurt the diamond. They try to tug the diamond in her ear thrice, 3 times, because these spirits, they wanted to make Belinda aware of the danger that was just near her, but she was unaware of the danger that was just behind her, and in that attempt they touched her diamond in her ear. Thrice she looked back. जितनी बार उन्होंने डायमंड को टच किया है, उसको हिलाने की कोशिश की है, उसको हर्ट करने की कोशिश की है, उतनी ही बार बेलिंडा ने पीछे मुड़कर देखा है. एंड थ्राइस द फोe ड्रू नियर, और 3 बार ही जो उसका दुश्मन है, now who is the foe here? Baron. He drew near, he came closer to his neck, so that the sight of scissors that was concealed from her sight. She could not see that pair of scissors. She could not see him in with his real weapon. Just in that instant, anxious Ariel sought. So just at that moment, the close recesses of the Virgin's thought. Just during those moments, Ariel, who was very anxious, who was anxious to save the lock of hair, he went closer to the Virgin's thought. Here refers to the thoughts of Belinda. He wanted to know the thoughts of Belinda, and as on the nosegay in her breast reclined, he watched the ideas rising in her mind. Sudden he viewed, in spite of all her art, an earthly lover lurking at her heart. Now Ariel, who was very anxious to save Belinda's hair, he came closer to her. He wanted to know her ideas. As on the nosegay in her breast reclined, he came as closer to her heart as there were flowers, there were designs that were with which there were flowers with which her dress was designed, her breast was designed. He watched the ideas rising in her mind, and he came as closer that he could see, he could actually observe the thoughts that crossed her mind. He could know those ideas. Sudden he viewed, and all of a sudden what he saw, he was, in spite of all her art here refers to her deception, that she was pretending an earthly lover, in spite of all the pretense that she was with which she was hiding all her thoughts, all her feelings, an earthly lover lurking at her heart. He could see a man's figure hidden in her heart. Amazed, confused, he found his power expired when he saw those feelings present in her heart, because Belinda had the changing attitudes through her outer appearance. She was pretending that she was least bothered about anyone, but in her heart she had that love, she had that concern for Baron. So when Ariel discovered those feelings of Belinda for Baron, he was amazed and he was confused, and by finding these, since she herself wanted, she had soft corner for Baron, so these spirits could not save Belinda from his evil designs. He found his power expired, so he was helpless, resigned to fate. He left everything to fate, and with a sigh retired. The pier now spreads the glittering forefix wide, unclosed the lock, now joins it to divide. Even then, before the fatal engine closed, a wretched sylph too fondly interposed. Now, what happened with those feelings? When Ariel found those feelings in Belinda's heart, he felt himself to be helpless. He left everything to her fate, and quietly, with the sad, dejected feelings, he went aside with the rest of his fellows. But even then, there was a sylph who was very anxious to save the lock of Belinda. When that engine, that fatal engine here refers to the pair of scissors, when it was closed, when the two parts were joined together, it put itself before the lock of hair. Fate urged the shears and cut the sylph in twine. So as the it was written, it was the fate of the sylph. The pair of scissors cut the sylph in twine in 2 parts. but airy substance soon unites again. Since it is the airy substance, so it soon became one again. The meeting points that sacred here dissever. Dissever is the separate. So though the meeting point of the two parts of the scissors, when it met, it separated the sacred hair. Now Belinda's lock of hair is represented here as sacred hair. So this is ironical here, and it is with capital H, sacred hair, from the fair head. So that sacred hair of Belinda was separated from her head forever and forever. It was separated from her body, from her head forever, and it would not be joined again. Then flashed the living lightnings from her eyes, and screams of horror rent the affrighted skies. Affrighted skies here, this is a figure of speech used here. Skies are not frightened. These are the feelings of the person that had been injected in the universal things. So the terror of Belinda has been injected in the sky. ये उसकी feelings हैं जो कि sky को दे दी गई हैं. So this is transferred epithet here. So what type of feelings? After her lock of hair was separated from her head, she came to know about that, and there was lightning. She was furious with anger, and that was reflected from her eyes, and she had the screams of horror, and she was frightened. Not louder shrieks to pitying heaven are cast. That she was cried and she wept in such a loud voice that her voice could be compared to when husbands or when lapdogs breathe their last, or when rich china vessels fallen from high in glittering dust and painted fragments lie. Now this her crying and weeping can be, the poet compares it that कि उस लॉक के कटने पे उसने इतना ह्यूमन क्राइम मचाया कि जिस तरह के किसी के somebody's husband, woman's husband has died. उस लॉक के खो जाने पर या उसके कट जाने पे उसने इस कदर गम गुस्से का इजहार किया है, जिस तरह से कि ये इस कदर उसने शाउटिंग स्टार्ट कर दी कि जिस तरह से कि किसी खातून के हस्बैंड की डेथ हो गई हो या किसी के लैपडॉग जो है उसकी डेथ हो गई हो. नाउ हस्बैंड एंड लैपडॉग दे आर पुट एट द इक्वल स्टेटस. Look at the irony कि एक हस्बैंड की डेथ, एक लाइफ पार्टनर की डेथ, एंड द डेथ ऑफ अ लैपडॉग. लैपडॉग जो कि पेट एनिमल है जिसको घर में हम खुद पालते हैं. सो in those days these are the vanities of the elite class. This is a mockery of the high society के हस्बैंड की डेथ और जो एक पेट एनिमल है दोनों की डेथ का एक ही जितना सदमा है और उतना ही सदमा बाल कटने पर भी है. Or when, another comparison is also there, or when rich china vessels fallen from high in glittering dust and painted fragments lie. What happens when the china vessels, चाइना मिट्टी का जो एक्सपेंसिव बर्तन है, अगर वो नीचे गिरकर टूट जाए और उसके पीसेस पड़े हुए हों तो उस पर भी उतनी ही शाउटिंग होगी. सो लुक एट द ट्रिवियलिटी ऑफ द इंसिडेंट कि तीनों चारों जगहों पर जो है वो एक ही तरह की क्राई है, एक ही तरह का दुख है, उस पर एक ही तरह की मॉर्निंग है. लॉक ऑफ लूजिंग द लॉक ऑफ हेयर, death of a husband, death of a pet animal, and the breaking of an expensive pot, जो जिसको कोई imported expensive pot जो है उसके टूटने पर भी उतना ही दुख है. So these are the vanities of the elite class. So they are obsessed with such things. Let wreaths of triumph now my temples twine. The victor cried, the glorious prize is mine. So Baron said that garlands of, he wants that crown of victory, that he has won that prize, he had won that, he wants his temple to be encircled with the wreaths of flowers. He is crying out, he is for his glory, for his prize, that he has got the reward. While fish in streams or birds delight in air, he says, and what he said that he is asking for the reward, and he says that till the time the fish, they keep on moving in the streams, or the birds, they keep on flying in the air or in a coach and six the British fair, or in a coach, that the females who ride, because in those days the females, the young ladies, they were obsessed with riding in the carriages that were driven by the 6 horses. So till the time these females of Britain, they keep on riding in the carriages that are driven by 6 horses, as long as Atlantis shall be read, as long as the books like Atlantis are read, or the small pillow grace a lady's bed, or the small pillows are used on a female's bed, while visits shall be paid on solemn days, and they receive guests on solemn days, on when numerous waxed lights in bright order blaze. That till the time there are a number of wax lights that are put together in a particular order, while nymphs take treats or assignations give, so long my honor, name and praise shall live. He says that till the time the nymphs, they keep on getting the entertainments, they keep on having the meetings with their beloveds, my name, my honor and the praise of my name, whatever I have got, it will remain till that time. So he has given all these things, that till the time the birds keep on flying, till the time that there are fish in the water, till he has given all these examples, that till these times, that probably he says that I have made my name eternal, and the glory and fame and the praise of my name will live forever, till the time all these things keep on happening. So these things will definitely keep on happening till the end of the day. What time won't spare, from steel receives its date, and monuments like men submit to fate. Steel could the labor of the gods destroy, and strike the dust the imperial towers of Troy. So he says that time would spare. This is the time that from steel receives its date. So steel has the capacity of ruining everything. So all those great monuments of which men are very proud, they with great arrogance they tell others about their achievements, those are also destroyed by steel, and they have to submit themselves to the fate, to the decisions made by the luck. Steel could even destroy the hard work of the gods, as it is said that the imperial powers, the imperial towers of Troy, he has given this allusion from the classical literature, that even those imperial towers of Troy, they are destroyed by steel. Steel could the works of mortal pride confound, and hew triumphal arches to the ground. So it can bring an end to all those victories of mankind. It could bring an end to them all. What wonder then, fair nymph here is Belinda, thy hairs should feel the conquering force of unresisted steel. That when all these things are destroyed, they are nothing before fate. That's when steel could destroy all such things. What is the significance, or what is the status of your lock of hair? So your hair stand nowhere in comparison to all those works of gods that are ground to earth. With this we finish with Canto 3. Now we begin with Canto 4. But anxious cares the pensive nymph oppressed. She was upset. She was worried because of all this incident, and secret passions labored in her breast. Now she had the mixed attitude. She didn't know, because earlier, as Ariel discovered that she had the soft corner for Baron, she had a loving attitude. In spite of her pretense that she did not care for anyone, not even for Baron, she held some soft corner for Baron. So she had mingling attitudes, mingling feelings in her, mingling passions in her heart. Not youthful kings in battle seized alive, not scornful virgins who their charms survive, not ardent lovers robbed of all their bliss, not ancient ladies when refused a kiss. And these passions that were hidden in her heart, she could not tell these to anyone, not even to the kings who survived in the battles. not even to the virgins who are very charming and attractive, not even the passionate lovers, and she could not tell even to the ancient ladies who refused the kiss, not tyrants fears that unrepenting die, not even to the people who die before they have regretted for their sins. Not Cynthia, when her mantos pinned Ori, ever felt such rage, resentment and despair as thou, sad virgin, for thy ravished hair. He says that she cannot even tell this to Cynthia, the goddess of moon, that even the moon goddess did not feel such a rage, such an extreme anger, that when her upper garment was in a disarranged manner, resentment and despair as thou, sad virgin, for thy ravished hair, that all these did not feel so disappointed and depressed at having lost these things as you are feeling now on your hair having been stolen. For that sad moment when the sylphs withdrew and Ariel weeping from Belinda flew, Umbriel. So what happened? That very moment when Ariel discovered those feelings in Belinda's heart, and it withdrew itself from the protection of Belinda and submitted her to the will of God, another spirit came there whose name was Umbriel. Now in opposition to Ariel, we have Umbriel. Ariel was the spirit who was keeping a guard on Belinda in order to save her chastity. So Umbriel appears, a dusky, melancholy sprite. So dusky refers to the color, the dark complexion of Umbriel, who is in sharp contrast to Ariel. Dusky is from dusk, when there is dim light. So melancholy is sad, gloomy, as ever sullied the fair face of light. So it brought a dirt or a big black spot to the bright day. Dawn to the central earth, his proper scene, repairs to search the gloomy cave of spleen. So spleen is the goddess. So, this spirit Umbriel, in order to find out something appropriate for this occasion, moved to the gloomy cave of the goddess whose name was Spleen. Swift on his sooty pinions flits the Norm, and in a vapor reached the dismal doom. No cheerful breeze this sullen region knows, the dreaded east is all the wind that blows. So it moved towards the cave, towards the house of the goddess Spleen, and it very quickly moved by moving quickly its wings towards the cave of the goddess of Spleen. And in splits of seconds it reached the gloomy place which was the palace of goddess of Spleen. No cheerful breeze this sullen region knows. Sullen is sad, very gloomy. So this region where the house of the Spleen was present, this cave, it did not know any happiness, any cheerfulness. The dreaded east is all the wind that blows. Now here it's the difference. The west wind in Britain is known to be fresh, and the east wind is known to bring sadness, misery, suffering. So there is a difference. West wind bringing happiness, bringing freshness, vigor, energy. On the other hand, the east wing is supposed to bring dread, misery, suffering, gloom, sadness. So दोनों में बहुत फर्क है. Wind is in itself is nothing, but literature में different concepts होते हैं. जो west wind है उसके साथ positive चीज़ें associate की जाती हैं, और जो negative हैं वो east wind के साथ associate की जाती हैं. That is why I said that the dreaded east is all the wind that blows. So the east wind blows there because it is all sad and gloomy and dejected. So that is the atmosphere of the cave of goddess Spleen. Here in a grotto is the cave, sheltered close from air and screened in shades from day's detested glare, she sighs forever on her pensive bed, pain at her side and Magrim at her head. So she is lying in her cave and screened. What type of a place is it? it is sheltered from air, and she is having it is far from the day's light, because she did not like the detested glare, she did not like the sunshine of the day. She sighs for, because there is whenever there is sadness, there are gloomy feelings, there is no light, it's dim or dark, so there is lesser light in her cave. She sighs forever on her pensive bed. Even her bed is represented as pensive, that it is also dejected, it is also sad. So she sighs while lying on her bed, she sighs. And what she is having with her, she is having pain at her one side, and she is having megrim on her bed. Megrim is responsible for it is migraine, which is responsible for headache. Two handmaids wait the throne, alike in place but differing far in figure and face. So she had two maids also, who were standing at the sides, who were attending her. They were having the same rank, they were having the same place, but they differed. They were very different from each other in their face and in their appearance. Here stood ill nature like an ancient maid. One was ill nature, and it stood like the ancient maid, the maids, the way the old maids appeared in the olden times. Her wrinkled form in black and white arrayed. So her appearance, she appeared, she was wearing a white and black dress, and her appearance was all wrinkled. वो बहुत झुरझुरियाँ सी उसमें पड़ी हुई थी. With store of prayers, it carried a store of prayers for mornings, nights and noons. All different types of or the prayers for different occasions, for different times of the day. उसके पास prayers थी जो कि different times के लिए थी. Morning के लिए अलग, night के लिए अलग, noon के लिए अलग से prayers थी. Her hands were not free, and even her heart was full of satire, was full of satirical remarks. Their affectation with a sickly mien. So the second maid who appeared there was affectation. First was ill nature and the other was affectation. It had this sickly mien, so it appeared very pale. Shows in her cheek the roses of 18. So somehow or the other she had managed to have the freshness of the roses in her cheeks. Practiced to lisp and hang the head aside. But she was, since the very name shows, she is affectation, and she has practiced to lisp. Lisp is affected speech, जिसमें के थोड़ा जो speaker है वो style लाने की कोशिश करते हैं अपनी speech में. And what she did, and hang the head aside. She would put her head on the side, or she would bend her head towards one of the side. Faints into airs and languishes with pride. That would give her style. And she would feel proud, she would feel arrogant on that. On the rich quilt sings with becoming woe, and she would lie on the rich quilts as if she is woeful, she is sorrowful and sad, wrapped in a gown, and the gown that she is wearing for sickness and for show. And she would be wearing a very expensive gown, and she would lie on the bed pretending that she is sick, but the other purpose for lying on the bed would be to make a show of her gown and the rich quilts to the visitors, to the people who would see. So it was for a show. It was not only the sickness. So the ladies, what they would do, they would lie on the bed in order to make a show of their gowns, because they would be wearing they would cover their bodies with those gowns, and they would make a show of those gowns, because these would be rich and costly. The fair ones feel such maladies as these. So the females in those days, they would often practice these things in their everyday life. They would often practice such type of illnesses in their everyday life. When each new night dress gives a new disease, that whenever with the night dress they would pretend to have a new disease, but in other words, this was a show of this they would do in order to make a show of their dress. A constant vapor over the palace flies. So there was a constant vapor that was floating over the palace. Strange phantoms rising as the mists arise, and out of those vapors strange figures, strange ghostly figures were formed, dreadful as hermits' dreams in haunted shades, or bright as visions of expiring maids. Those figures, those ghostly figures, they were as dreadful as the hermit's dream, as the hermit had the horrible dream, or they would be as bright as the vision of the maids who are about to die. Now glaring fiends and snakes on rolling spires, pale spectres, gaping tombs and purple fires, now lakes of liquid gold, Elysian scenes and crystal dooms and angels in machines. This is all the description of the cave of the goddess of spleen. The glaring fiends, the devils who would be very angry, and the snakes who are shaped in the form of curls, and the ghosts who appear very thin, and the gaping tombs. The gaping tombs refers to the white graves or the tombs, and the purple fires. Now lakes of liquid gold, which is turned into the liquid, and the Elysian scenes and the scenes of the paradise, and the crystal dooms, the clear dooms, and the angels in machines. So this is the description of the cave of the goddess of spleen. Unnumbered throngs on every side are seen. He could see the crowds of people on both his sides, of bodies changed to various forms by spleen, and those had been changed into various figures by the goddess of spleen. Her living teapots stand. So those were actually human beings, but they were converted into different shapes, and those human beings, they resembled different teapots, whatever she liked. वो गॉडेस ऑफ स्प्लीन को जिसके लिए जो शेप पसंद आई, उसने उस इंसान को उस पर्टिकुलर शेप में, उस पर्टिकुलर टी पॉट में जो है वो ढाल दिया. One arm held out, one of their arm held out, one bent the handle, this and that the spout. So they appeared, these all human beings on both the sides, they appeared like the teapots. A popkin is the cooking pot, and it appeared like he is giving another comparison here, bringing in the classical literature, a reference from classical literature, that as if it appeared like the Homer's tripods. Here sighs a jar, and there a goose pie talks. So where the women who had been transformed into a jar, they sigh there, and there are some who are converted into the shape of a goose pie, and they have been baked, and they have been pasted, and they talk. Men prove with child as powerful fancy works, and maids turned bottles call aloud for cocks. Men prove with child as if there are men who are expecting, and the powerful fancy works. Powerful fancy here, the work is it's the work of the imagination. So the imagination works here, the power of imagination works here, and the maids who have been turned into the shapes of bottles, they call aloud for cocks. They call aloud, they are calling out, they are crying out for the stoppers. Safe past the norm through this fantastic band. So all these things are lying on both the sides of the passage, of the path. उसके दरमियान में से norm जो है, he passed very safely. And what was the reason that he passed safely? A branch of healing spleenwort in his hand. He carried a branch of spleenwort. Spleenwort is a plant which saves the person from the evil intentions of the Queen of Spleen. Then thus addressed the power, "Hail, Hayward Queen." He then, the Nom Amrael, who had come to the cave of the Queen of Spleen, he started addressing her. He said that, "I welcome you who rule the sex to 50 from 15, that you rule over these young women from the age of 15 to 50. parent of vapors and of female wit, and you are the one who produces the melancholy, who brings them to the fit of sadness, and of female wit, who is responsible for their intelligence, who give the hysteric or poetic fit, and you are responsible for making them write poetry. You inhibit them with that fit for writing poetry. On various tempers act by various ways, and then in various persons you act differently. Make some take physic, others scribble plays, who cause the proud their visits to delay, and send the godly in the pet to pray. So it says that you work differently in different human beings. You make some of them to use the medicine. He says that in various individuals you act differently because of the temperament of the person. You make some of the people to take medicines, while in others scribble plays. The worthless things that they write, you convert them into plays, and who cause the proud their visits to delay, and you are the one who make them proud, and as a result they delay their visit, and you are responsible for sending them into a religious fit so that they are able to pray to God. A nymph there is that all thy power disdains. That there is a nymph, there is a beautiful young lady who rejects all your powers, who does not acknowledge your powers, and thousands more in equal mirth maintains. And there are thousands with her who maintain that happiness. But oh, if ever thy norm could spoil a grace, or raise a pimple on a beauteous face, like citron waters matron's cheeks inflame, or change complexions at a losing game, if ever with airy horns I planted heads, or rumpled petticoats, or tumbled beds. So now the norm is saying that if ever I have done such a kind of thing, what he had not done, that he if ever he had spoiled the grace of the goddess, and if ever it had brought a pimple to any beautiful face, or if ever it had inflamed the cheeks of a matron, then if ever it had changed the complexion at a losing game, and if ever it had with its airy horns it had planted heads, or rumpled the petticoats, or the tumbled beds, or caused suspicion when no soul was rude, or if ever it had caused doubt in when no soul was rude, or discompose the head dress of a prude, or over to costive lapdog gave disease, which not the tears of brightest eyes could ease. Hear me and touch Belinda with chagrin. Chagrin here refers to the ill humor. Here it refers to the burning heart. It represents the bad feelings. So he says that I have never done such a kind of thing, so give me, I am requesting here that give me the ill humor, so that I can bestow Belinda with that. That single act gives half the world the spleen. So in this way I will be able to bring unhappiness to half of the world. The goddess with a discontented air seems to reject him, though she grants his prayer. So it seemed that the goddess was not satisfied with the situation, or whatever the norm has said. A wondrous bag with both her hands she binds, was having she was carrying an amazing bag in both her hands, like that where once Ulysses held the winds. It was a similar bag that Ulysses carried. It's a mythological figure, and this is the reference to classical literature also. There she collects the force of female lungs, and she collected the force of the power of female breaths. And what it contained? It contained sighs, sobs and passions, and the war of tongues. So it contained all those ill humors that women, refined women, do not like to possess. While next she fills with fainting fears, and another bag is also there, that she fills with fainting fears, soft sorrows, melting griefs, and flowing tears. So she filled the second bag with fears, with sorrows, with the griefs, and with the tears. So lots of grief and sorrow was filled in that bag. The Nom, rejoicing, bears her gift away. The Nom was too happy to get that gift, these two bags, spreads his black wings and slowly mounts today. Mounts today, it comes back to the earth. So with his wings spread, the Nom starts taking its way back to the earth. Sunk in Thalestris' arms, the nymph he found. Nymph here is Belinda. She was lying in Thalestris' arms. Thalestris was Belinda's was one of the lady at the court, probably Belinda's friend or her fellow there. So since she was sorrowful, sad, and dejected, she was lying in the arms of Thalestris, her eyes dejected and her hair unbound. So her hair were also not in proper order. We can compare Belinda's situation here with the situation earlier, that her hair were very neatly tied by the maid and the sylphs also working on that. Full over their heads, the swelling bag he rent. He poured everything from those bags over their heads, and all the furies issued at the vent. And right at that moment, right by the opening of that bag, it issued all the furies on these two females. Belinda started burning with the anger, with the fury, more than a human anger. And fierce Thalestris fans the rising fire, and even Thalestris, since this bag was poured on her face also, she increased her anger. She worked to increase her anger. "O wretched maid," she spread her hands and cried. While Hampton echoes, "Wretched maid," replied. So in these lines, Thalestris addresses Belinda, and she calls Belinda wretched maid. "Was it for this you took such constant care, that was it for this occasion that you had nourished your two locks for such a dreadful event, the bodkin, calm, and essence to prepare? For this your locks in paper durance bound, for this with torturing irons wreathed around." So it says that was it the event was for which you had very painfully nourished, you had taken proper care of your lock, and you had used the bodkins and combs and the essences to get ready and to nourish it and to prepare it. So was it for this that you worked so hard, you put in lots of your efforts? Was it this was the reward for which you were working so hard, you were putting in all your hard works and efforts? For this with fillets strained your tender head, and bravely bore the double loads of head. Gods, shall the ravisher display your hair, while the fops envy and the ladies stare? Honor forbid, at whose unrivalled shrine ease, pleasure, virtue, all our sex resign. She puts in a question. She says that this was the thing for which you had stressed, you have strained yourself so much, and you took lots of load of and you have been brave enough to nourish these locks of hair. Then she says that shall the ravisher display your hair, that the one who has taken away, who has stolen this lock of hair, he will display it for the purpose of envy. He is a fashion conscious young man, and he would display it as his great achievement, and the ladies of fashion, they would stare at it. Honor forbid, she says that, at whose unrivalled shrine ease, pleasure, virtue, all our sex resign. That because of this you have lost the honor, and you had sacrificed, because of it you had sacrificed your ease, your pleasure, your virtue, and everything because of this honor, because this lock of hair, it symbolized your honor. Methinks already I your tears survey, already hear the horrid things they say, already see you a degraded toast, and all your honor in a whisper lost. How shall I then your helpless fame defend? It will then be infamy to seem your friend. So she says that I am looking carefully at your tears and I understand what horrible things, what horror they are causing and what they are saying. And because of losing this lock of hair, you have become dishonored, and in a whisper your honor is lost because of losing this lock of hair. I am helpless to do anything for your fame, and it is a shameful thing for me to that I am helpless. As your friend, I cannot do anything for your fame. And shall this prize, the inestimable prize, exposed through crystal to the gazing eyes and heightened by the diamond circling rays, on that rapacious hand forever blaze? Sooner shall grass in Hyde Park Circus grow, and wits take lodgings in the sound of bow. So she says that this is the reward, this is the inestimable prize, this is the invaluable prize that is exposed through the crystal to the grazing eyes, and it is even more valuable than the diamonds that are put into the circle. So this is even more valuable than those diamonds. And that lock of hair that is invaluable, that is even more valuable than the diamonds, it lies on the greedy hands of that ever lies on those greedy hands who have stolen it. She says that soon the grass will grow in the Hyde Park Circus, and soon the wits, the intelligence of the people, it will bow down to the sound of the, it will take rest in the sound of the bow. Sooner let earth, air, sea to chaos fell. Let there be chaos, let there be disorder on the earth because of this. Men, monkeys, lapdogs, parrots perish, all that, everything will perish because of this mishap. She said then, ragging to Sir Plume repairs, and bids her beau demand the precious hairs. And she asks Sir Plume to take that precious hair back from the beau. Beau here refers to the gentleman, referring to Baron. Sir Plume of amber snuff box justly vain, who was always famous for carrying a snuff box with him, and the nice conduct of a clouded cane. He carried it very nicely along with him. With earnest eyes and round unthinking face, he first the snuff box opened, then the case, and thus broke out. So what he did with his honest eyes and with his round face, which appeared to be very unwise, he first opened his snuff box, which was a trademark which was always associated with his personality, because he was famous for carrying a snuff box with him in a very distinct manner. And he started speaking, he started addressing Baron. My lord, why, what the evil? These damn the lock, for God, you must be civil. Plague on it, 'tis past as jest, nay, prithee pox. Give her the hair, he spoke and raped his box. He started addressing Baron. He said that why, what was the reason, that what on earth have you done this kind of act? You must be civil, you should have courtesy to behave with the ladies. Plague on it, 'tis past a jest. It seems as if you were playing, you are being playful. He says that give her the hair, return that hair. As he finished speaking, he closed his box in a very stylish, he struck it very hard in order to emphasize the thing that he had just said. He wanted Baron to return the lock of hair that he had cut, so that he could not show it to others as a reward of his love. It grieves me much, replied the peer again, who speaks so well should ever speak in vain. But by this lock, this sacred lock I swear, which never more shall join its parted hair, which never more its honours shall renew, clipped from the lovely head where late it grew. Now Baron spoke. He said that he addressed Sir Plume. He said that whatever you have said, it is all useless, it is all in vain. He says that I swear by this sacred lock which will not join ever the head from where it has been separated. It will never get that honor back from where it has, because it has been separated away, it has been taken away from the lovely head where it had grown. That while my nostrils draw the vital air till the time that I am taking my last breath, this hand which won it shall forever wear. That my hand that has cut, that has gained that lock of hair, they will hold this lock of hair forever. He spoke, and speaking in proud triumph spread the long contended honors of her head. He spoke, and when he was speaking, he had that triumphant air in his voice, since he was carrying that honor of head, because that was he was carrying that lock of Belinda. Let's have a review of lecture 30. In today's lecture, we discussed, we started off the text. We saw that the game of Amber, it finished, and coffee was served, and right after that Baron was ready to get that lock of hair. He was making plans, and right at that moment Clarissa took out the pair of scissors from her case, and she handed it to Baron, and Baron cut the lock of the hair. Then we meanwhile Umbriel appeared, and Umbriel, it was another spirit who was black. It moved towards the cave of Queen of Spleen, and it brought 2 bags from there that contained sighs, sobs and tears, and it spread those bags over Thalestris and Belinda. Thalestris started her first address. She addressed Belinda, and later on she asked Sir Plume to ask Baron to return that lock of hair. In return to Sir Plume's request, Baron's reply we discussed. In return to Sir Plume's request, we discussed Baron's reply, and he replied that he will never return that lock of hair. From this point onwards, we shall discuss in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.